More than friends, less than lovers, pals. Oh yeah.
Hey there, pals.
Wow.
You guys didn't see that one coming.
But you didn't see synchronicity.
Oh, not the theme of this episode, but we really should
Yeah.
do one on it.
You know what? Get back to us on that. And then when we do it, you'll be like, wow, that's so synchronous?
I don't know, but I liked it.
Synchronous feels like either a villain's name or it is a word or it is like synchronous.
And
like
he someone who makes everyone to be wrong.
Yeah, whenever like you see like something that is like synchronized, you're like, he's coming.
Synchronous. It's kind of like deja vu. Like it has that same lore
yeah,
to it.
Has that
Ooh,
feeling.
deja vu is like a good. I think that also could be a good supervillain. Like they make you like.
Yeah.
You kind of are unsure if you've done this before.
Did you ever see Deja Vu with Denzel Washington?
No.
It takes place on either 4th of July or one of the American holidays, so I'm going to use it as an excuse to watch it this week. It's insane.
You see pictures of Denzel in the new Gladiator movie?
Yeah.
He has an earring.
Really?
In the Gladiator movie, yeah.
Oh, I was hoping
So
that was
people
just
were
like
really
in
excited.
life now. People were seeing him around
Maybe
with
he'll
an
take it
earring.
on.
I would love that. Who's somebody you'd like to see with an earring? Just even if it's just like a month earring.
Kamala Harris.
I feel like she probably has a single piercing. I want her to have gauges
I want her
for
to
a
have,
week.
yeah, like I guess more like a statement earring.
I want her to have like huge stretched earlobes just for a week.
Did you see that clip of her like doing a bit to a like prime minister or somebody? Like somebody is coming to meet her. I have so little context of this. It was just a clip I saw on Twitter. Somebody comes up and they're like, "Hello, Kamala Harris," and she like goes, "Hello, Kamala Harris." She like imitates them.
You know what?
And someone goes, "Hold up, she's doing bits. I'm in."
You know what? I'm going to say something. Kamala Harris, all of the pitfalls aside, whatever. I will say that I feel bad for her because I feel like nobody is on the vibe she is on.
And that's what
it feels
people-
like Veep, but like a kookier version.
Like every clip I see of Kamala, I have zero context of, and
I
it
never
just
want
leaves me open to wonder.
Don't give me. Wow. That's really interesting. Yeah, because sometimes I would say I don't want the context. Sometimes there's something so.
Or it piques my interest and makes me want
makes me
to follow
lean in a little
that.
bit.
I
said,
follow
hold
that.
on.
So
What is that?
for all of the our 3 and under listeners, when do kids start reading? 3, 4, older, probably older. 4, 5. For anybody who can't read,
10, 13.
How old are you to read? I really have no context for children. When people are like, "Yeah, it took my kid like a little while to be crawling," I'm like, you could tell me a 5-year-old doesn't know how to walk, and I'd be like, ain't that how kids are?
I didn't walk until I was really old, and my mom was worried about it, but it was just because the doctor was like, she probably knows how to walk. She just knows that her brothers will carry her around if she doesn't.
I think that's really sweet, though.
No,
that you
it
had a
rocked.
family that was that supportive.
Yeah, but then my mom said it really freaked her out because then when I did start walking, I stood up and started running. And she was like, she was on the phone with a friend, and she was like, Millicent, standing! Millicent, taking your first step! She's running! She's running!
Like a horror movie where your mom's on the phone, and then like in the background down the hallway, you just see like, that's baby Millicent running. Terrifying. But anyway, today's episode,
Yeah, back to the...
if you couldn't read, which is what I was saying, if you're a child who can't read and can read our corner up here, Wonder 101.
It is in cursive, which I know could throw a curveball.
Oh, yeah. So if I learned cursive in 3rd grade. So if you've not
mine
made it to
was
3rd grade yet.
I learned how to write it in 2nd grade, but I don't think I could really read it until 3rd grade because our teacher would send home notes in cursive and we'd be like, ah!
Yeah. If you're in that sweet spot of you've learned to read and write, but you can't read cursive yet, comment below because you can. And if you don't know how to read yet, just wait. You're gonna love it.
Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
Huge. The world opens.
Open. Oh, and you can wonder a lot easier. Although babies are, I would say babies are kind of the wanderers. Because they have to.
I mean,
when you're starting from ground zero,
You've never seen a thing before.
everything is a wonder.
You go from amniotic fluid to like the Impractical Jokers on a TV. Everything's new.
And I think a lot of times we'll be like, it's funny that kids love like trash trucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that, like, when your scale of life gets that much bigger, it's there's like such impactful milestones. The ticks. that is something that we were just discussing last night as a kid, when it's really impactful when you first learn about ticks.
Or anything that sucks blood, I would say. Like understanding that
Back
there
to the
are
leeches.
actively vampires in the world.
I just think growing up on the East Coast being like, a tick is something that could affect us all.
Yeah.
And you remember that first kid that came in your class that had Lyme's disease. And you were like, life is different.
Yeah. You're 24 hours on the East Coast at any given moment. You are 24 hours away from the window where you could get Lyme's disease.
Yeah.
Like if a tick is on, it's like 24 or 40. It's 24 hours. Like if they're
Is
on
it that
you.
fast?
I think it's, if they're like attached to you for 24 hours, that's like how long it takes, I think.
Yeah. Millicent and I decided last night that we wanted to do an episode on wonder, and then this morning as we were strolling and discussing it, we realized how big the concept of wonder is, right? You have wonder the noun and you have wonder the verb.
And I'll tell you this, we had kind of mapped out the episode last night and we were feeling pretty good about it.
We were feeling good
about it. And then we woke
it.
up this morning, and how long is that walk? Like maybe a mile?
20 minutes.
mile
Yeah.
and a half. By the time we get back from that 1.5 mile walk, we have actually unraveled the topic so much that we walk into the house and we're like, we have nothing.
You know what? Let's read the definitions.
Yeah.
Let's get to it. I'll read the definitions, and I am going to read both definitions so you can understand the magnitude of wonder. We're going to go big, and then we're going to go small.
Yeah.
On the 101, so don't get scared.
Yeah, she's going to tell you the noun definition, and we just want to let you know right now, don't worry about the noun yet.
Not yet. We'll get there.
Okay, we promise.
So here's the first definition. Here's the noun of wonder. A feeling of surprise mingled with admiration caused by something beautiful, unexpected, unfamiliar, or inexplicable. So broad. Because it's just kind of like, again, to me it's more of a state of being where it feels like a little bit like gratitude, where it feels like you're kind of just opening yourself up to being curious by, well, again, that's a little bit of the verb, but it's so hard to, and then when you get into awe and wonder, that those kind of get mixed together. But I do think awe is a good way to fathom the noun of wonder.
There is a component, like anything that makes you, like the noun wonder, to experience that, there isn't a component of like ineffability of it is beyond something that either it's beyond it is beyond something either that I already know, something that I'm able to understand, or something that I had as an expectation and clearly my expectations have been blown away. But we're not talking about the noun.
We're not talking about that one. But if you feel wonder in your day-to-day life, if you're inspired, you feel all of the world, you should.
You keep going.
And good for you. But
we're proud of you.
To make it simpler, we're going to start with the verb. So here is the definition of the verb. Desire to be curious to know something. Which again feels kind of broad.
Yeah.
But that's the fun of wonder.
That
It is so broad and it can be applied to so many things.
And that's one of the best things about, it's one of the pitfalls, and also one of the best things about humanity in general is that we have so many differences, qualities, unique stories, perspectives. And I literally saw a TikTok the other day where this guy was on the beach and he was wearing like literally gray sweatpants, and he's like, it's just crazy that I live in Laguna Beach and I'm wearing sweatpants on the beach, and those people over there, he like essentially understood perspective for the first time at the age of 28. And like all the comments are girls literally just being like, me and my friends in 3rd grade at a sleepover on a trampoline, like falling asleep.
But we're happy he's getting there.
Yeah. But all that to say, it is just every single person has some different angle or perspective or little like tweak that they've made to opinions or thoughts that are like there for us to understand.
Yeah.
It is there and it's waiting. And even if we talked about this too earlier of the idea of other people's opinions, opinions are a little bit harder to converse on because it's either you agree or you disagree. And if you agree, you're kind of just bouncing back and forth. And if you disagree,
I feel like I would love, and if you're a word person, go to heytherepals.com and tell us. And I could wonder, but I would wonder if one of you know. I feel like there needs to be a word of somewhere between opinion and like not knowing something, because I think there's a lot of things that I have an opinion on in life, but I'm also, my opinions are pretty malleable.
Yeah.
Like I feel very open to hearing, because I'm like, I just don't know.
we're in our 20s.
Yes, and I'm excited by that. And I hope, honestly, I hope I stay that way my whole life, where it's like, I think we live in such a dangerous time of opinions where we're talking about this in terms of social media. It feels like we just live in such a day and age where everybody has to have an opinion on everything.
Yeah.
And your opinion, you need to be like sure of. Otherwise, it like doesn't have value
Yeah.
to some capacity. But there is such a wonderful nature
Yeah.
of being open to hearing what other people's perspectives are on things and letting yourself be open to that might change.
Yeah. I think too, in terms of having a set opinion or being like people are expected to have a secured thought on this, I think it also a lot of times will freeze, for me personally, but also I think for other people, it will freeze you up from actually expressing it, because you're like, I don't feel necessarily like ready to say my opinion, because one, somebody could there's some stuff where like when you're first educating yourself on something, somebody can come up and just poke holes in it very quickly, and you're
Yeah.
like, I shouldn't have even spoken.
Yeah.
Whereas there needs to be, like you said, that in
middle
between word of
ground.
like, hey guys,
Here's what I've collected so far.
I'm fiddling with this.
Yeah.
I'm fiddling with these opinions, and
Yeah.
I am just letting you, what do you think? Because a lot of times, and that's like just how the algorithms work of like things where people are making statements are gonna get traction because people are gonna either disagree or they're gonna
Yeah.
agree in the it's
or they're going to accept it as their own opinion, which
Yeah.
I know a lot of our friends have kind of expressed a general frustration of feeling like recently conversing with people and being like, I don't know if this is your opinion or if this is just like an opinion you got off the internet.
Yeah.
You know, that somebody else said, or I think that's where the challenge comes into play. So,
what is the challenge?
Millicent, please tell us the challenge.
Right. Our challenge for this week, should you choose to accept it,
Dun dun.
is to pick up your Wonder Spigot. Did we decide that spigot was the right
Yes, we
word?
did.
We did? Okay,
I
great.
love it.
Pick up your Wonder Spigot, look at the world around you, and tap in.
Tink, tink. So if you've never seen a maple, what do you call them? Farmer? Harvester?
A maple harvester.
Harvest. If you're a maple harvester, tell us your proper terminology.
I think one of my cousins actually does like harvest their own maple. They live like up
Really?
in upstate New York. Yeah.
That is so cool. That experience has to be so life-giving. To just be like, wow, this thing that is like so sweet, I'm getting from. So you have a spigot that you tap into a tree.
She also does this in Hunger Games. Katniss does this in the second one, I believe.
I think she gets like water though, doesn't
Yeah,
she?
it's
for something?
water in the
But
trees.
anyway, you tap in to it, and then eventually, once you get deep enough, things start flowing.
Yeah.
So by this, we mean, I think it is so easy to fall into conversation with people that gets on the very routine of just like, how are you? How's the weather? But if you start pulling a thread of wonder and being like, oh, this person mentioned that, we started talking about how hot it was outside today. And they were like, oh, yeah, I was outside all day today and I was dying. Obviously, pull that thread. Oh, my gosh, what were you doing outside? Oh, I've been like getting into gardening. Oh, my gosh, you can talk about your own gardening experience. You can, but it's following that. Or, again, maybe you know nothing about gardening. Yeah. Have a little curiosity. Again, we said the definition is desire to be curious, to know something.
Yeah. I would say too, with gardening in particular, but this is just an example of that. Say you do know a little bit about gardening or whatever, and you ask them, odds are usually everybody who has done something has figured, especially something like gardening or a skill or something that takes a little bit of time, has had to learn lessons. And that is something where even just asking, what is something you've learned while trying to garden?
Yeah.
And because I've learned lessons while gardening. I've learned all kinds of lessons while gardening.
I think maybe you should tell our users your big lesson that you learned last summer.
Yes. Last summer, I decided that I was going to, we have these like these flower beds in our backyard that are rectangular. And I was like, I'm going to take one of them and I'm going to make a bee-friendly like wildflower garden. So I go.
Admirable.
Thank you. Thank you. I did my research. I looked up all the types of
You
wildflowers to be
wondered?
getting.
I think we were wondering what's going on with them bees.
Yeah,
What's
I keep
going
seeing
on?
bees dying. And I was telling Maddie yesterday, I keep trying to feed them Gatorade or anything, and I usually end up, I think, drowning them.
Feed the bees.
Tuppence.
Gatorade.
I decided we have a backyard. It's time. It's time for me to plant wildflowers. So I go out back one day. I get all this soil. I'm like lugging it up. I'm covered in dirt. I'm on my hands and knees. I am like one with the earth. I'm really having this like ethereal, like, wow, I am my bare hands doing this. And as we have mentioned before, we have a miracle tree in our backyard that has 5 different types of fruit. Now, there were a lot of grapefruit at this time that had fallen and were rotting. Okay, right? Waste, green waste, right? It's in our green trash can. We're going to compost it. I, in that moment, remembered, oh my gosh, what do I do with all of our food? We compost it because it's good for
the environment,
for gardening.
So we've been told.
So I have all this rotting fruit. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I'm going to take it and I'm going to mix it in with my soil. I'm going to make the healthy soil. I thought I was Johnny Appleseed. I fully was like, I am going to have the most
Johnny Appleseed. What's his? Was he planting? What's his deal? If you're Johnny Appleseed, go to Hey There Pals.
He was actually a missionary.
Really?
I wondered about, this is an example. I wondered about, one time I was just thinking like, what is Johnny Appleseed's deal? Because I was like, was he actually like doing that? He was, but a lot of it was also him like low-key like claiming the ground by planting stuff on
chopping? Because isn't it, here comes Johnny Appleseed chopping? Am I fully making that
up?
Or
is it tossing out the apple seeds? Or all I know is that people were saying that it was up for debate as to like, was he planting them so he could be like, this is my land?
Which was a colonizer?
Horrible. I hope that is not the actual.
Johnny Appleseed was a colonizer?
Oh, absolutely.
Probably.
If they've got a song about them, they are a colonizer.
Yankee Doodle?
Oh, yeah.
Putting a feather in his cap? Probably not his cap. I don't know. I don't want to think that about Johnny Appleseed or Yankee Doodle. Yankee Doodle was a man of whimsy.
He invented the word macaroni.
A feather in his cap and going, macaroni.
And you know what? I do wish that I lived when things were first really getting going.
Oh,
especially when people were first writing things down.
When people were naming things, getting to be like chapstick. Okay, so you ground
nature. So I grind up I literally am like dripping in sweat. Like I am like,
real quick, we have been calling that the Wonder Rabbit.
The Wonder Wabbit hole.
Falling the Wonder Wabbit hole. That's what just happened. Was the Wonder Wabbit hole.
Yeah, that was the Wonder Wabbit hole, and we will be falling into it
a couple more times. So get comfortable.
I am chopping up these grapefruit. I am like fully like, it's not even
woman
like I'm
of the earth.
It's not even that I'm putting them in the soil. I am legitimately putting the soil in a bucket with the orange, like with the, what are they called? Like with the grapefruit. And I am taking the shovel with the pointy end and I am chopping it up. I'm mixing it in. Then I'm going barehanded in to like really stir it all up. Mm. I scatter those seeds and I was like, this is the start of something amazing. And I told my therapist,
it's my hands.
The next day I had an appointment with my therapist at the time. And I'm telling him, and I said to him, I was like, I'm not going to say that I'm putting a lot of weight on these flowers blooming, but I'm putting a lot of weight on these flowers blooming. And I told him what I had done, and he is a gardener. And I watched on the little Zoom window, I'm telling him, and I kind of like watch him like flicker for a second.
Him having to make that choice of being like, I know what this girl's going through. I know the depths of what this girl is going through.
I know what these flowers mean.
Do I
let her think for the next 4 to 6 weeks that she's going to see sprouts any day now? Or do I inform her that he said, just to be clear, it was grapefruits. And I said, oh yeah, tons of grapefruits. Tons of grapefruits. And he said, right. So grapefruits and most citruses, but actually primarily grapefruits, are incredibly acidic. And he goes, I'm sorry, but that patch is not going to grow.
I think it was better that he ripped that Band-Aid off now.
Yeah.
Because hope can be a dangerous thing.
But you know what's crazy? He told me that patch wasn't going to grow. And sure enough, it did not. But
he was correct.
But this year, I went back for take 2, round 2. Don't ask how round 2 went. Shut up. But I went back for round 2 and I was weeding the garden. And I see a lot of weeds, but then I see 3 that I'm like, I don't know that you're a weed or not. Like I actually don't know. And I'm going to wonder. And I left it alone. 3 days later, I have 2 marigolds and then 1 with a name I can't remember, but that had lasted from the year prior, which I thought was really...
They were survivors.
Yeah, and now that soil is actually really great, and it would have grown some soil really great if the temperature hadn't just absolutely fried some of those bad boys.
But that is a part of our challenge this week of, again, wonder, as you've seen, and as we've discussed for the past 20 minutes, can get very broad, where we are telling you that you don't have to be that overwhelmed by the state of wonder. Look at what you have in your life. Look at the people you have in your life and wonder about them. Tap into that spigot, pull that thread of asking them things that you may never have known about them. This can go for a stranger too, but something like I was home this weekend and I had some wonderful conversations with my grandparents where, think about what you're going through this day and age. I started asking them, what did you guys do in your summers growing up? Like what were I learned that my grandma fished a lot, which was just so endearing to have this like new image of somebody who I love so dearly and I feel like I know fairly well, but it just really paints a picture of somebody in a light that you didn't know. Truly one of my favorite things is spending time with my family and getting one of my parents to say, oh, I didn't know that, or I hadn't heard that story like about my grandparents.
Yeah.
And I think especially for the older generation, sometimes they're like, the kids don't want to hear about what we do. We got my grandparents that book where you answer those questions, and there's a lot of those for moms because moms famously are bad, I'll call you out, at talking about themselves.
You've been called out with love because we want to know you more.
Love gun.
And your kids want to know you.
But yeah, your children want to know. And I think there's just such a connectiveness that has been lost in storytelling to each other and getting to wonder, again, whether it's a stranger or somebody you feel like you know really, really well. And there's always something so endearing of like couples that have been together forever and then being like, oh my gosh, I'm saying couples and I'm about to say you and me, where I really delight in getting to learn a story about you that I haven't heard at this point.
Yeah. It is so funny when occasionally we do hit I've never heard this.
Which, not to bring it back to the tick thing, but you were telling me about how you led a movement for your teacher.
I led a movement?
Your teacher who got diagnosed.
Oh, my improv coach in high school.
She was telling me this last night and I loved this story.
Well, my improv coach in high school on the East Coast, again, not to bring it up, but it is a huge deal. Lyme's disease is wreaking havoc.
It is a big deal
up
on the East
and
Coast.
down the East Coast. My teacher, though, my improv coach, we had always known him as a pretty small guy, right? And he informed us, he showed us his driver's license at one point, and he was not a small guy. And so we like so much so that it was like
a life change happened.
This was not like and
out.
We had learned that he had Lyme's disease. And
we gained a cause.
None of that. None. We said no. This improv team said no, but for the first time. They said Lyme's disease ends.
Now we will not and Lyme's
but
disease.
There was literally a Lyme's disease walk, like a 5K around like a movie theater parking lot, like 30 minutes away from us. And we told our coach, we were like, we are walking in
here. Because I think as a kid, with like ticks, it was the first time where it was like, it doesn't matter if you're 45 or if you're 8, a tick affects us all. It can get you. If you're standing in a field, which you are, if you're on the East Coast, you're in a creek,
if you're doing a photo shoot with your friend who has a nice camera in a field somewhere,
or you're having someone's birthday party set up outside. We did a lot of laser tagging in the field.
You're sitting on a hay bale with your buddies.
If you're four-wheeling, you also could be a victim.
Yeah. But then we had his face on our shirt and we made green tie-dye shirts and then put his face in the middle of them.
And that's, again, kids need a cause.
Yeah, they do.
Wonder about if you can be the change.
Pause.
Wonder.
Back
to wonder. We feel like a good example of a time where we were just submerged in wonder, which we don't want to keep talking about travel because we really do think that you can find wonder. Again, like I said, like I've known my grandparents my whole life, and I've gotten to spend a lot of time. Literally last Christmas, we stayed up with my grandpa till 1 a.m. like discussing his relationship with his father, and it was so truly one of the most meaningful experiences I feel like I've had with my grandfather, and getting to converse with him about his opinions on just that relationship growing up. And it was so insightful and so wonderful. So you can find that in your day-to-day life with people you know, but there is something too when you're traveling. It is just such a good ripping the band-aid off of all new experiences, all new people. I'm in a place where the status quo is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And it's really wonder to me is about shaking up the status quo a little bit, throwing out a question that you might not typically ask, being in a place you might not typically find yourself, which was for us Portland.
And one of the reasons too that we don't want to keep talking about travel is because we've gone on 3 trips.
Yep.
3 trips. One of them was just fully a road trip, and we only were like in Arizona for like a night, but still great. And then the other 2 we did take planes, trains, and automobiles. So that's pretty something to be proud of. But every time that you are in a new place, and that does not have to be another state.
Again, could be a new coffee shop.
Yeah. it could also be a place that you have been so many times, but ask yourself, do I know the lore here?
We took a train, met an incredible number of people. We met some fun girlies.
We did the 30 hour. Was it 30?
Yeah, it was about
30 hours is a long time to be on a train, by the way.
It was a long time.
Because by the time you hit hour 12, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm not even halfway through here.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, the Wi-Fi is spottier than they advertise. Imagine trying to do some work calls and you
imagine your boss is ringing and you can't answer.
And you just simply can't answer. And
but
anyways.
there was the train, I think, was just, again, something that neither of us had ever done before. So there was a lot of unexpected natures to that. You are confined in a pretty small area with a large number of people for a long amount of time. But it's different than a plane because you can really get up and move. And the dining
and
car
the seats are bigger.
was an experience in and of itself.
Highly
where you
recommend the Starlight.
Yeah,
The Starlight, Coastal Starlight liner.
Yeah, when you eat dinner, you get sat with random people.
Yeah, I had a fly in my wine, and so I got a whole new glass.
Yep. And so the reason we took this trip was Millicent and I had missed a band that we quite love, Boy Genius, when they were in Los Angeles. So we said, why not just use this as an excuse to travel? We've been wanting to go to Portland for a long time. They were playing in a town called Bend, Oregon. And so we said, why don't we just take the train up there, pull that thread of where could we find ourselves? We'll two birds with one stone, go to Portland, see it all.
Get a car, then go to the concert.
On the train, we got sat with a guy who was taking the train to Seattle to see Boy Genius. Like, to see the same band that we were going to see. It was just such a fun connection of wonder.
It was.
But I would say our first big, wow, we're learning, was when we got to Portland. We met our Airbnb host.
Yeah, we did. Oh, we met him.
And we're chit-chatting with him about the area.
Yeah, and he had great reviews. Like, his listing had, like, really good reviews and said that he has very good recommendations.
Specifically about him.
And we were near an area, we were near Northwest 23rd Street, which is
pretty safe, but there's a lot of, like, little shops and stuff.
Great little area, great
So
restaurants.
we were asking him about it, and he was, like, giving us nice tips, but he also, in a way that I think was informative and not scary.
And you need to know these things.
And it was helpful, was just kind of like, hey, if you're traveling at night, if you're walking around at night, because he was like, this area is very walkable. You can walk inside of the town, but he was like, if you are walking at night, like, something to be aware of is that there are a fair number of homeless people in this area, and we do have a fairly bad drug problem in Portland, so they might be a little more sporadic or aggressive than what you're used to. So just, like, be alert while you're walking around. And we were like, we had
read up. We had also read up a little bit about it, and just we knew where we were staying too. My sister-in-law is from Portland area, so she had told us kind of like
this
aim
is
for this area. Yeah.
Which so we felt fairly safe, but we were like, that's helpful to know.
Yeah.
And then he starts, we start inquiring a little bit. We pull that thread of, the drug problem in Portland because we were
and he's a local, and we have no context because we're not from
knew nothing about. Obviously, we are aware of the drug problem in America, but we, specifically Portland had heard a lot about it. And he goes, well, I voted to legalize them, as if we were going to be like, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
we had no context, so we were pulling that thread.
He basically informed us that he was like, well, yeah, it got really bad about like 2 or 3 years ago because there had been a law that was passed, which I voted for. And we were kind of like, what's the law? And then he was like, to legalize everything.
To, like, decriminalize drugs, which, again, a thing that many places are trying on different scales, different amounts. Maryland's mayor actually just freed, like, 175 prisoners that had marijuana charges and, like, decriminalizing that. Yeah, right?
Love.
So, again, there's a sliding scale of what people are doing on that. So we were curious on the all-in method of make everything legal. Turns out, not working.
And this is a kind of thing where on paper, or if you are watching the news and you see this about Portland, you're like, how dumb. Like,
yeah, well, of course.
But I think that through pulling that thread just a little bit more, it allows you to get beyond maybe the results or whatever, and get to judging the heart of it.
Yeah,
or
and you
the
kind of
intention
understand
of it.
why we as humans were experimenting in that way.
And him truly being like, having pride and like having voted for that.
And having tried.
I think because truly, I think the people in Portland were fully like, we are going to try something radical because we
have a problem.
Yeah, and we want to see results. It didn't work, but
it did not work, and they know that now. And I think
and we've all learned.
I'm sure that they're trying to change that. But it was fascinating to hear from a local who is experiencing that of, we saw that there was an issue. We thought we need to try this method of decriminalizing because so many people were just getting arrested and then thrown back out, and there was no help for it. I think that they were hoping that maybe it would not make these people get stuck in a cycle of reincarceration of themselves, and hopefully they would break that cycle. It's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah, because I think once you do that, then you're kind of waving a flag and saying, "Come here!"
Because again, I think once you are putting fentanyl on things,
yeah,
there is a bigger issue.
But to that point, in terms of like wonder as a concept, if we are only like, if they saw a problem that other cities see, and truly, I really do respect them being like,
we need to make change.
The wonder allowed them to try something new, because if you stick to only what you know, nothing is ever gonna like. You could have a good outcome, but it's like you're never gonna know what could be if you are not engaging with what you maybe don't fully grasp or understand yet.
Yeah, and again, not to make this sound too woo-woo, but my father and I did watch a fascinating documentary on fungus this weekend, which there's a lot of research being done on what that could be doing for people.
I think you should put on your hat to talk about just this.
My wonder hat? This hat?
Yeah.
I brought this out last week for the summer episode. I was supposed to return this to my dad this weekend, but I actually had no room in my suitcase. I know that me having it now is going to make it seem like I wanted to keep it.
Although, yeah. I don't know if it'll mess up the space buns.
It's okay.
Oh, no, it's okay. Perfect. So just tell us about the show, what you watched with your dad.
I must ask you a question. Where's my hug? That's the kind of wondering I feel like this hat's doing. This is my father's hat, but it's his vacation hat. And I feel bad because he's about to go on vacation and he doesn't have it. So I'm wearing it in honor of him. I know. But he said he doesn't feel like it would have been good for the cruise, but not Alaska. I asked him that. He said it's fine. But because he said he thinks it's a little too much for Frederick, Maryland to be rocking on the daily.
It is.
You know, but what I think a really cool aspect of this documentary was there was a lot of researchers that were wondering and truly being like, we actually just don't know what all this research means yet, but we know that it could mean something. And I think to Portland's credit, they took a big swing. Again, him being like, and there was a vote to, you know, because he was being like, and you know, there's a big drug problem here or whatever, and we voted to, you know, there was a law passed recently to decriminalize drugs. I voted for it. And we left a big pause.
It was the order. It was the order he said it in that was a little silly, because he did say we have a huge problem here.
Huge problem.
Huge drug problem.
I voted for.
Huge drug problem. There are just, you know, because they decriminalized all drugs. I voted for it. Which I voted for. And it has, it is bad. You want to avoid these areas.
Which it was for funny. But again, really interesting to learn. So then we're on our journey. Longer.
We go on our walk. We're going down through all these little stores. And I will say that a great place to practice wonder is a small business or a farmer's market.
Because they are
artist fair.
Always going to be, because usually a lot of times when it's a store that's somebody's passion,
yeah, the more specific a store, the better the combo with the owner is going to be.
Oh, yeah. This weekend, went into Teresa's Treasures, a store with my grandma, where they were a woman who makes bags. Out of cork.
Oh, and she's
Didn't
making
know
them bags. You better believe she's making them bags.
You could sew cork. She's making the bags. Millicent saw my bag. It's rocking. Yeah. Thank you, Grammy. That
you
bag
can
rocks.
sew cork. Cork is a primary export
I had no idea.
Of what's it called? Portugal.
And she showed.
Yeah, when I went to Portugal in like high school, they had like all these stores that had like really cool like cork jewelry, and I want
to pull your thread. I think now's the time, because I didn't expect to be pulling Millicent's thread right now. Sorry, Dad, I'm putting your hat down here now.
Don't be scared, guys.
Ooh,
so in high school, it's just coming out all this one, actually.
Okay, well, that might happen. When you tap the spigot,
you might get a clog, so you might have to pull a little bit harder. Because sometimes right before a breakthrough, stick with us, your church. Stick with us, your church. Folks. Sometimes before a breakthrough. Now, for our visual listeners, what has happened is Maddie pulled the string out of my pocket. Instead of coming out as one long thread,
we had a large clump.
And it got stuck for a second, then it came out of my pocket. And there is a star,
and it was flowing
at the end of it. So now we are holding it up.
Because now I know.
And now you're caught
that
up.
Cork is an export of Portugal.
So folks, sometimes
I wish I could have told Teresa.
Are going to find a thread. You're going to pull it. It's going to come easy at first. And then maybe it kind of stops for a second. Maybe there's like either sometimes you hit a knot and you do need to leave it alone. Because sometimes there are things that maybe people don't want to talk about or get into.
And I think I'm good about that.
Well, that's because you start with the crazy question.
Or I hit it.
Maddie, I have been in the backseat of a car while Maddie's in the front seat with a stranger. I think it was like a friend of ours who was picking us up.
Like a friend of a friend?
It was a mutual friend who was like taking us one place to the other. Maddie gets in the front seat. I'm sitting in the back. I'm kind of just like, I'm tired. I'm laying against the window, and I just hear Maddie go, What's your relationship with your parents like?
Because, okay, and this is where I don't think this is 101. This is a different method where it's feet first, you're cannonballing in with a big question, a big swing, which will get you results faster. I go straight to the vein. You don't got to do that yet. You just need to follow the wonder, your personal wonder of asking questions. So, again, walk into a small business.
Yeah.
Easy to start asking questions. So, here we go, strolling through Portland.
Especially when it's
night
a
one.
small business that is like and I would say most things in Portland do, in an alternate world or in my life later on, I do live in Portland.
Well, I think that's why we were so intrigued by Portland, because it was a lot of just small passion projects.
Yeah.
Of people who were just having a good time and being like, I want to make a store that is completely salt and chocolate, which is the wonderland that we walked into in Portland.
We walked in, and I need to find like my actual journal entry. I honestly should have pulled that. But
When I'm walking into a store and the only person in there is the employee,
because I'll tell
that
you,
is my wonder hat's on.
yeah. Oh, and I'll tell you this right here, right now. Mm-hmm. You can tell when you walk into a store if the owner wants to chat or not, because sometimes it's kind of more of like a chill, like, okay, this is just like, whatever, and then you're looking, and then you can head out. Sometimes though, the owner will interject once they interject the first time, you're like, they're welcoming you to the store, whatever. Once they interject a second time with like, if they see you looking at something and they give you a
they've
little
got
factoid,
knowledge.
there's this thread. Pull it, baby.
Because when Willis and I walk into a store, and on one side there is a wall of chocolate bars, and on the other side is a wall of salt.
And you've been on a train for 30 hours.
Your mind is looking for some stimulants of knowledge.
And this was our like first night there, so we were already like Maddie and I, when we're traveling, it's very like, we're wired, we're ready to go,
we're excited to
we
be
are
here.
ready.
And again, because I think we're a little bit of wonder junkies.
Yeah.
Where we kind of are a little bit addicted to the wonder of the world and just being like, wow, there's so much we don't know. Admitting you don't know something and you don't have an opinion on something yet,
that opens you up to an influx of information that you can sift through without having a preconceived notion that would stop you from maybe finding an answer that is most authentic to you.
because if you're like, I know chocolate, let me tell you,
You don't know chocolate.
you don't know chocolate the way this woman at the store knew chocolate. So we start, looking at all this chocolate, and we were like, let's tonight as our first night.
Yeah,
in
we'll
Portland,
both get a chocolate
Let's get a fun piece of chocolate. And again, I think maybe some people at home are being like, is this like, laced chocolate, something crazy? It was literally just chocolate, and that's what was so fascinating about it.
Because it wasn't just chocolate.
Because
it
you
was
don't
stories.
know all the different kinds. It was stories. And she had so many tips for us of where different chocolate was from, and depending on what kind of experience we want. And then again, when you're alone with a store owner or a bartender, they're going to give. So she goes,
And can I just say too, Maddie and I's specialty is people over the age of 50.
oh yeah.
That is our specialty. That is our
Because I
sweet
think
spot.
I see them as they just have such experience and
Yeah.
knowledge that I I don't know.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
want to learn.
And I want them to hold me sometimes.
and I do want a hug.
Yeah. And I would love a hug that lasts longer.
Yeah. And a hug that's
anticipated.
hugged a lot of other people, that's got a weight and knowledge of life.
Oh, yeah.
But so she told us, and she starts letting us try all this stuff. But when we got into the salt, I would say for me is what really... Well, and also, Millicent and I are dangerous because the line for bits for us is blurred.
Yeah.
Because she goes, well, when you try the chocolate, you got to sit in the chocolate tasting chair.
There's
And
just a wooden
And she
chair.
points to a chair, and we go, and she goes, it changes everything. And we go, wait,
What do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, you sit in that chair every time? You sit in that chair
There's
every
a
time you
chocolate
try
chair
the
that changes everything when you taste
And
it.
she
It
was like,
changes your experience.
she kind of was like, well, just because, sometimes it'll take you on a trip. And we're like,
It was
okay.
I don't think it was a joke 100%. I do think she was like, this would be fun if you sat in a little chair.
Or
and
I've
experience.
sat in that chair and tasted chocolate there before.
yeah, that was all she meant. But Mills and I both were like, our lives will be changed when we said
This is your legacy. In our lives, this is your legacy.
This is the chocolate throne. She was a kind of like, oh, I mean, yeah, you could.
To be fair, we then did try a sample, and I said I have to sit in the chair, and I did do like a. So we did do
I
that.
think sometimes being willing to embarrass yourself first in front of people,
Always.
I think it makes people be like, I can get a little weird with this person and they're not going to judge me. This is a judgment-free zone because I did just pretend like I saw God as I tried this chocolate.
Yeah, and I did.
And I did.
I will also say, in terms of wonder, when we ask the questions and we're asking her, you know, what is it that is this woman has made her life chocolate and salt.
And she did it. She was not the store owner.
No.
She was just a woman who worked here who loved this store.
And I think like those are the moments where even just wondering to the point of a thread can be as simple as asking a bartender or asking a shopkeep, what's your favorite thing? Like, what's your favorite thing in here? Like, what's your favorite drink?
Instead of walking in somewhere and going, oh, I know what cocktail I want.
Yeah.
Or I know what I want to eat at this restaurant. Open it.
Oh, I love going up to the girlies at bars sometimes and just going, give me the fruitiest thing you got.
Yeah.
Make me something fruity. Bottom shelf, please.
Yeah. My friend Thomas and I accidentally one evening, we learned that people do not go out to bars at 8 p.m. They wait until later. But we showed up at this bar that's called Tramp Stamp Granny's. And it's a karaoke piano.
Start going to the bars at 8.
Honestly, because it's a piano bar, we showed up. Our friend Brenda, now our friend, she was the bartender, only person in there. Then the piano player shows up. It's me, Thomas, a piano player at a piano bar, and the bartender. Just chit-chatting for literally an hour before another person showed up. Turns out Brenda's auditioned for the musical 6 multiple times in New York. She's gonna be a star. So you never know.
You never know.
So and then she starts telling us about salt in Portland. Back to Portland.
I just one more thing too.
Please.
Knowing the lore behind something allows you to appreciate it so much better, i.e., knowing the lore about a grandparent or knowing any form of lore about a person gives you a bigger, like a broader scope of who they are as a person, which allows you to appreciate them. But especially with something like food or a product or like something that is a small business related, the stories behind and most products that are like small batch or that are anything, it's
a journey.
Also in Portland, based and started in Portland, Salt and Straw ice cream company. I'm doing stuff with them for work. And they do a really cool thing where so much of all of their flavors change every month. And they do their flavors based on what is like in season. And they do like all these collaborations. And I thought this was really cool when we were talking to some of their employees who are like scoopers. And they're pretty crazy flavors. Like
they get quirky where it's like honey mustard. And you're like, huh?
Yeah, and you're like, how is this
Somehow
ever going to be?
tasty.
And somehow it's really good.
They wonder.
But it really is like they view each flavor when they do one each month is a full-blown story. They partner with like small businesses or they'll partner with like reusable like food banks and use that to do like bread pudding flavor ice cream. But all of it, they would send out at every month. They would send out 3 pages on each new flavor that had the whole story of like where they sourced every ingredient. That was like a huge part of it is like, this salt is from here and this family has owned this salt place forever. And we make it by like, we steep it overnight and like the honey lavender, like overnight, the honey and the lavender are literally like mixing for 24 hours before they have this whole thing. The founder and the co-founder at a certain point were like, we can't keep asking these like scoopers to like that's too much. Like 3 PDF pages, like that's too much. So they stopped sending them out and they were getting calls from the managers at shops being like, they really want the 3 pages back.
That's really cool.
Because it is fun for them they train like as hospitality people, but it is fun for them to feel like they are part of the story and like they are getting to share this.
To tie in the challenge of the tapping the spigot until you get the flow with somebody, and again, by that, sometimes conversations might be a little work. You might be having to kind of draw it out of somebody until you get to that. But I think it is everybody cares about something. And to get to find what somebody else cares deeply about, to reach that level with somebody and for them to share it with you, it just feels like such an honor.
Yeah.
And it feels so almost kind of a very like, why are we here answer of it. I don't know exactly the answer to that, but that is close to an answer of there is something so almost something spiritual in that of when you learn and somebody gets to tell you about what they care about. When a woman in Portland with long white hair is telling you about salt
or anything
Our camera got hot and tired. We were back one last time just to say
we just got so excited about Wonder we couldn't
Wonder
stop.
Again, you could I think to pinpoint that, break the barrier however you feel like you need to, if you feel like you're having a hard time pulling the thread. But I guarantee you, if you have a little wonder in your heart and you're a little curious about the people around you and about their lives and what they've gone through, again, if it's something if you don't know anything about it, that's the best place to start.
Yeah. And it can also, again, be as innocuous as it can be as deep as finding out something that like my grandfather one time just casually dropped that like he was a war hero.
No, the way that grandpas are always casually dropping the most traumatic. Like my grandpa one time was like, yeah, when you're seeing somebody get dragged through the streets, what? Of Iraq?
I've never
What?
seen that.
What are you talking about? What are you talking That's
I've never
something-
seen that.
As a child, not something that's happened to me.
Just
in
crazy.
So follow that.
Follow that. And again, this doesn't. You take this challenge and you do with it what you want to do with it and what feels most authentic to you. I'm gonna read it again though.
One more time for you.
You're gonna pick up your wonder spigot. You're gonna look at the world around you, and you're gonna tap in.
Okay?
And you're gonna let it flow, and you're gonna wonder. Oh, it's gonna taste so good. Sorry, a drop of my own sweat.
We are
on my lip.
incredibly sweaty.
Well, pals.
This has been a delightful episode of Wonder. We hope that there will be many more Wonder episodes where we can expand in different capacities, but here's a little bite size for you of Wonder 101, where to start.
And if you learned something new this week, if you learned something exciting,
Yeah,
if
please
you
tell
have
us.
done anything, guys, we have gotten 2 emails. Okay? One of them is, and I think they're actually, no, one of them is literally from you, and one of them is from a family member. So,
No hate.
no
And
hate.
family members, please keep writing
Oh,
in.
we love it. But www.heytherepals.com.
And you know what? Now that I'm getting more comfortable with video editing, hopefully the screen will say it. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us this week.
Yeah.
And find that wonder.
Yeah.
Get your wonder spick.
Fall down your wonder wabbit hole.
Fall down the wonder rabbit hole. Put your wonder hats on. Whatever little wonder saying you need for yourself, find it, keep
Say,
it.
whoa,
and
wonder. Oh,
That
I
could be
forgot
one.
to put on my Wonderstruck Taylor Swift perfume.
Oh, sorry.
I missed. There we go.
Get your wonder on.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh my God.
I'm so hot. I'm hotter than I've ever been.
It's so hot.
Pals. Oh, yeah.